The Backrooms TCG. Object number 40. The Backrooms TCG. Description: The Backrooms TCG is a tactical, asymmetrical trading card game based on everyone's favorite hellhole, the Backrooms, featuring all your favorite levels, entities, and objects to collect, trade, and battle with. You may find Backrooms TCG booster packs, anywhere. It's kind of random, actually. We had an accident with the printer, and now it's sending packs all over the place. But you can get them at various places. I hear someone found a pack inside of a box of royal rations, thinking there'd be food inside. Some stores should have them too. We hope so, at least. What can you find in a pack? The very first set of Backrooms TCG has just been released. Each pack contains some number of cards, completely randomized. Will you get the fabled All Rares pack? Only one way to find out. Why is the number random? Well, we can't control the damned printer. Want to know what types of cards you're going to find in packs of Backrooms TCG? No? Well, too bad. Card types. GOI. These are the key pieces to our game. Players represent a team of a certain GOI, and these cards indicate which one you're playing as. They determine what cards can and cannot be in your deck, as well as your win condition. The Major Explorer Group, also known as the MEG. Card type. GOI. If you would roll the exploration die, instead roll 2 dice and choose 1. Your outposts cost 1 less food. At the end of your turn, if you control 6 or more outposts in different levels, you win the game. Flavor text. The Meg is the largest faction in the Backrooms, created with the goal of finding an escape. Levels. Levels are the bread and butter of the Backrooms, so of course, we had to give them some love with our game. Each level has 2 unique abilities, one static and one triggered encounter ability. Players will explore various levels throughout a game, establishing outposts and encountering entities along the way. Level 1. Habitable Zone. Card type. Level. Static ability. Whenever a player explores and rolls a blank, they draw 1 additional card. Triggered ability. Lights Out. Create 3 neutral hounds. Flavor text. Level 1 is a large, sprawling warehouse that features concrete floors and walls, exposed rebar, and a low-hanging fog with no discernible source. It possesses a constant supply of water and electricity, which allows indefinite habitation by wanderers, provided that appropriate precautions are taken. Players can traverse the backrooms by using the Explore ability, which is explained in more detail below. Entities. Entities are the real meat of the game, whether they're ordinary fauna and flora, humans just trying to survive, or powerful godlike beings. Entities take a central role in our game, much like in the backrooms themselves. Each entity may perform an action each turn. It can be an attack on an opposing entity, outpost, or activating a powerful ability. Each entity will also have a cost, usually paid in food, an attack and a life value, and a carrying capacity value. Let's go over to each of these numbers, some of which are found in other types of cards. Cost. Yellow. The required cost to play a card. Aside from levels and GOI cards, all cards have a cost. This cost is usually paid with food, the game's resource. We'll talk more about food later. A cost of X can be paid with any amount of food, and cards with this type of cost will usually have effects that can scale with how much food you spend on them. Cards with the cost of question mark can't be played normally from your hand. You'll have to figure out some other way to put them into play. Attack, or ATK. Red. The amount of damage the entity will do when attacking. Life, or HP. Blue. Taking damage will lower an entity's life. Once that value reaches 0 or lower, the entity is trashed. Carrying capacity, or CC. Green. The amount of objects an entity can carry. Daring Explorer. Cost. 3. Alignment. Neutral. Card type. Entity. Card subtype, human. Carrying capacity, 2. Action, explore. Roll the exploration die. HP, 2. Attack, 2. Flavor text. Every day, several people wander the backrooms, charting the unknown. Objects. Objects are cards that provide you with additional effects. Like entities, they require a cost, usually paid with food, and they enter play attached to an entity you control, if possible. If an entity leaves play, any object attached to it stays in play, and they can be picked up by other entities you play later. Objects can only be used by the entities holding them. Objects range from one-use consumables to powerful gear for your entities and other valuable items. Consumables. Once used, a consumable is sent to the trash. Object 20. Rixagas. Cost 5. Alignment UEC. Card type Object. Card subtype Consumable. Action: deal 3 damage to each entity. For every human killed this way, create a neutral wretch. Flavor text. Rixagas, also known as the Tears of Eccles, is an extremely dangerous bioweapon often used by the UEC. Outposts. Outposts are powerful cards that give you permanent benefits as long as you are in the same level as them. Just turn them to face down when you're not in the appropriate level. If you move between levels, any unattached objects you control clip out with any outposts you control. The Masked Maidens Station 1. Cost 4. Alignment Masked Maidens. Card type Outpost. On arrival, this gains Bound. Whenever you play Object 24, place 1 marker on this card to a maximum of 3. At the beginning of your turn, you gain 1 food for every marker on this card. Flavor text. Spread throughout various stations across the backrooms, the elusive masked maidens keep growing in number. Phenomena. The final card type, and the most simple. You pay a cost, play the card, apply the effect, and discard the card. Easy. Judgment of the Eyes. Cost 2. Alignment Eyes of Argos. Card type Phenomenon. Mark a non-enigmatic entity. Put a guilty marker on it. Entities you control gain +1 attack per marker when attacking a marked entity. Guilty markers stay on cards when they change zones. Flavor text. The restless sin hunters of the Eyes of Argos are always searching for the most deprived criminals of the backrooms. Setting up a game. A game of Backrooms TCG starts with players' decks on the table, and their GOI cards turned face up. A player's deck contains 40 cards, with a maximum of 3 copies of each card, although some exceptions may apply. A player's deck may only contain cards from their chosen GOI and neutral cards. After both GOI cards have been revealed, all players select 3 levels and shuffle them all together. This will be the level deck for the game, and should be placed at the center of the table. After that, the player going second picks level 0, 1, or 2. If the game has more than 2 players, the choice will be made randomly. The level chosen will be the starting active level for the game. A special Explore die should phase in, and, once it does, both players' decks will be automatically shuffled. A few of the perks of making anomalous card games. Each player then draws 5 cards, unless their GOI card states otherwise. After everything is all set up, the game can begin. If there are only 2 players, the first player skips their draw on their first turn. The play area. Both players have a deck, a trash pile, their hand, and the field. There are no restrictions regarding the position of cards on the field. Players are free to organize their cards in hand and field however they please. Placement of these zones can be left up to the player, but we recommend having your deck to the right with the trash pile directly behind it. The level deck, as well as any neutral entities, will be placed on the center of the play area. Turn structure. At the start of your turn, you draw a card. Afterwards, you're free to perform any number of actions and play any number of cards in whichever order you'd like. Each entity may perform one action per turn, and you may stash a card once each turn. Let's go over the actions players can take. Actions. Stash. Once, at the start of your turn, you may place a card from your hand on your stash face up to draw a card. Then, you'll gain 1 food for each card on your stash, which you can then use to play cards and activate abilities. A player's stash may contain a maximum of 10 cards. Attack. When you attack, you're spending an entity's action to deal damage to an opposing entity equal to its attack value. That opposing entity will deal damage to your attacking entity equal to its power, too. If the damage is enough to reduce an entity's life to 0 or lower, also known as taking lethal damage, that entity is trashed. Other effects. Some effects will require an entity's action to activate. Usually, these effects will be on the entity itself, though outposts and objects may require an entity's action to activate their effects too. Additional rulings and keywords. Create. A card's effect may instruct players to create a card. If that happens, don't worry. Our patented anomalous technology will place as many copies of that card as specified in the effect into play from outside the game. Neutral entities. Sometimes, cards will create entities that do not belong to any player. These entities, usually generated by a level's effect, take their turn after all players have done so, and will perform an attack targeted at a random non-neutral entity. On arrival / on departure. These are simple. On arrival effects trigger when the card enters play. On departure effects trigger when the card leaves play. Clip in / clip out. A card may, during the course of the game, clip out of the current active level due to an effect. In that case, turn the card and anything attached to it face down. Those cards are treated as though they left play. This will trigger any on departure effects. If the game returns to the level those cards clipped into, or if an effect makes them clip in by other means, then turn them face up again. This will trigger any on arrival effects. Trash. When you trash a card, place it on that player's trash zone. Simple, right? Annihilate. Whenever an effect tells you to annihilate a card, remove it from the game. There's no coming back from that one. Stun. If an entity becomes stunned, it loses its actions next turn. Disable. A disabled entity loses its text box until the end of its controller's next turn. It can still attack, however. Heal. Healing an entity removes damage from them. Makes sense, right? If an effect instructs you to heal X, you remove X damage from that entity. If no number is specified, remove all damage from the entity instead. Shield. If a card has Shield X, prevent the next X times it would take damage or be trashed by an effect. So, an entity with Shield 2 would be protected against damage or trashing effects twice before the shields wear off. Enigmatic. Players may only have 1 copy of cards with Enigmatic on their deck, and a maximum of 5 Enigmatic cards per deck. Cards created by effects do not count towards this limit. This keyword is represented by a unique symbol on the top left corner of a card, and is usually reserved for powerful, unique cards that can swing the game in your favor, like this one. Blanche von Haderach. Enigmatic card. Cost? ? Alignment? Cygnus. Card type? Entity. Card subtype? Newman. Carrying capacity? Infinite. Pacifist. Bound to level 609. On arrival, Heal all entities. All players draw 2 cards. All other entities gain Pacifist and Action Talk to Blanche. Then, create one Object 96.1. Whenever Blanche is talked to, create one Object 96.1. Attack 0. HP infinite. Flavor text. Welcome to the Cygnus Archive, dear. Would you like a cup of tea? Explore. Whenever you explore, you'll roll a special 6-sided die with 4 blank sides, a no-clip side, and a special encounter side. If you roll a blank, you draw an additional card. If you roll no-clip, you may discard the current active level and flip over the next one in the level deck. If the level deck is empty, shuffle all discarded cards into a new level deck before flipping over the new active level. Any unattached objects in play are trashed, unless their controller has an outpost in play, in which case the objects clip out with the outpost. If you roll Encounter, the active level's encounter ability will trigger. There are various cards that'll allow you to explore, usually at the cost of an action. Scavenge. If an effect instructs you to scavenge a card, you add a card of the specified type, if any, from your trash to your hand. Bound. A keyword used to indicate a card is bound to a level. Outposts are bound to the level you play them in, and there are a few cards bound to specific levels. If the active level isn't a level the card is bound to, it clips out until the game returns to that level. Pacifist. An entity with Pacifist cannot declare an attack. You'll have to use their action elsewhere. Study. If a card instructs you to study X, look at the top of X cards of your deck. Then, put them back on the top or bottom of your deck in any order you'd like. If you were to study 3, you could put all 3 cards to the bottom or rearrange them on top however you'd like. Or place 1 on the top and 2 on the bottom. It's up to you to choose how to distribute and order those cards.